1972, when one of the directors of Blue Flare, and then you get another colleagues, we include 2 other lawyers, we register Blue Flare, after we then privatize NPA and set up EDSA and EGTC with the promise that the perennial electricity crisis that Sierra Leone has been experiencing will become history. Instead, the energy crisis, the electricity crisis has increased, corruption has increased, the privatization of electricity supply just don't result into massive corruption that involves foreign companies, international financial institutions, and now a corruption that is being defended by international diplomats, foreign diplomats in Sierra Leone who have become not spokespeople for democracy and transparency and accountability, but the champions of disinformation and misinformation and the leading protagonist in an effort to deceive Sierra Leoneans as part of an ongoing campaign, national and international campaign, for cover-up a monumental corruption that the APC and SLPP have carried out against the future, against the prosperity, against the happiness of the people of Sierra Leone. That is what we're talking about. So the next question we would ask, now the relationship between Anesbai Kuruma, the APC, and Blue Flare Energy Sierra Leone Limited, that Anesbai Kuruma gave the Western Area Power Generation Project. Within Anesbai Kuruma and the Kuruma family, the relationship with Hussein Daha and Nissam Nama. How Nissam and Hussein get the contract for provide electricity supply when Blue Flare had no capacity, had no track record, had nothing so whatsoever we give them the credibility for be granted the right and the authority for be in charge of Sierra Leone electricity. And how did Blue Flare, after getting this contract, and transform themselves or turn themselves over into the Copper Belt Energy Corporation, CEC Africa, that became directed under Karim Nasser. So what are the relationship between Hussein Daha, Nizam Nama, the 2 Lebanese, and Karim Nasser? And what are these people's primary relationship with the APC and Anesbai Kuruma? How did they transform Blue Flare that was registered in UK, registered in the British Virgin Islands and in Sierra Leone? How then transform themselves into the Copper Belt Energy Corporation? What is their relationship with the Commonwealth Development Corporation? And what happened to the debt that these companies took in the name of providing electricity to Sierra Leoneans in the days of the APC between 2011 to 2018? That is the question. And how Karim Nasser will be the director of CEC Africa, at the same time the director of TCQ Power. I mean, this is what, like I said, in the previous episode we talked about corporate incest. This is the classical example of corporate incest, where companies are being formed by the same politicians, by the same corporate gangsters. They transform themselves from one company into another. They issue the same press release. When you read the press releases of the APC, the press releases issued in the name of the Western Area Power Generation Project, and the same statements by Karim Nasser from the days of the APC to now, taken over by the Americans, you find the same thing. So the question is, how the Americans and Madabiu were supposed to investigate corruption of the APC, corruption of the Anesbai Kuruma regime, including this monumental corruption that was carried out in the name of providing electricity to Freetown and the Western area, has now become a darling project of the United States Development Finance Corporation. In other words, how is the United States Development Finance Corporation, how does the United States Agency for International Development inherit one of the most dangerous corruption arrangement that the Anesbai Kuruma regime carried out between 2013 to 2018? How are they so comfortable to admit that they are providing America's taxpayers' funds? By the way, I'm also an American taxpayer. How are they providing American taxpayers' funds to companies and corporations that never went through the transparent process of acquiring a development contract and are now announcing over 400 million in debt? And this is a question for the American ambassador who has been defending or brandishing this. Let's forget about the imposition of debt. Where is the morality of American democracy? The American commitment to advancing transparency and accountability is being called into question here. How can the Americans fund or take over one of the most corrupt contracts that Sierra Leoneans have witnessed in the days of the Ernest Bai Koroma regime? How does Madabio, we institute commissions of inquiry, put Ernest Bai Koroma and the APC on a supposed commission of inquiry, and this is one of the monumental corruption that was unearthed under the Ernest Bai Koroma regime? How did the U.S. take over such a corrupt arrangement and are now announcing over 400 million in debts? What kind of moral rules apply here? This is pure gangsterism. We'll talk about corporate gangsterism. This is just the example, a tiny example of it. So the question goes, how did the U.S. Development Finance Corporation inherit such a monumental corruption project? And why has the U.S. also repeated the same crime, the same activities that the Commonwealth Development Corporation has carried out in the days of Ernest Bai Koroma and the APC? We are not making accusations here. We are posing these questions because these questions are informed by the thousands of documents that leaves a trail of this gangsterization of the Sierra Leonean economy, the exploitation of the privatization program, where we were told by the IMF, the World Bank, development agencies, including the United States government, the British government, that privatization, private sector development is the way out of poverty for Sierra Leoneans. Now, 60 years after independence, or so-called independence, 20 years after the war, this is what we have, where big countries, including the United States with its 300 million population, is now part of this gangster operation that is committed to the impoverishment of our people, impoverishment and underdevelopment of our country. There is no other way to describe this. Because we cannot have an individual like Karim Nasser who has announced or promised providing electricity to Sierra Leoneans, where these Lebanese companies and Lebanese corporations are being used as a front for the underdevelopment of Sierra Leone, for the imposition of manufactured debts on our people with the promise of providing just electricity. Can the United States imagine blackout across the United States for just 1 week, where every city or town or suburb in this country will suffer perennial darkness because of a power cut? Can you imagine that for just 1 week? What will happen to the United States if we have electricity blackout across every city in the United States, from New York to Washington to Chicago to San Francisco? If we have a power cut in all major cities across the United States, in every town and in every suburb, what is going to happen? A lot of people are going to die, because there will be people dying in theater rooms, undergoing surgeries. Well, that is what these foreign companies, Milila Energy, TCQ Power, the Copperbelt Energy Corporation, Blue Flare, this is what Karim Nasser, this is what the Commonwealth Development Corporation and the U.S. Development Finance Corporation has been financing in Sierra Leone. This is what the United States Development Finance Corporation is funding, claiming to fund. They are funding a project that has promised Sierra Leoneans electricity supply for more than 10 years, where electricity supply is still a pipe dream to the poor and innocent, suffering man and woman of Sierra Leone, children, school-going children, who are undergoing darkness, perpetual, born in darkness, growing up in darkness, and continuously the dream of electricity. In most communities in Sierra Leone, when the power is turned on, people dance, they celebrate, they come out in the street to celebrate, just to see the light bulbs come on. In the United States, people don't even think that electricity is a luxury. And we have United States Agency for International Development, the United States Development Finance Corporation, the United States ambassador going on Sierra Leonean television and the Sierra Leonean media, telling us that they have inherited a corruption project that was left behind by the APC, by Ernest Bai Koroma, by British companies, and they are now loading on the heads of Sierra Leoneans, generations yet unborn, more than 400 million in debt, with the promise of electricity that is still a pipe dream. Where is your morality? Where is your conscience? In future episodes, we go back to the history of the Western Area Power Generation Project. We will take the conversation back to where we stopped with the history of Blue Flare, and we go move on to talk about Karim Nasser, the Lebanese connection, the use of the Copper Belt Energy Corporation, how the British came in, where are the monies, the use of tax havens. This is what we call the illicit financial flows that has underdeveloped Sierra Leone, underdeveloped African economies. In pursuit of truth, in pursuit of justice, we are not going to relent. We're committed to this. And no amount of deception, no amount of distraction, no amount of misinformation and disinformation could dissuade we or take we attention away from exposing this facade of development that is costing lives in Sierra Leone.